Good day, grade 12 learners. My name is Mr. Mhlomo. I'm back here with you to take you on economics, paper 1 final lesson for the year. This lesson is brought to you by Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with the Cyber Discovery Center. Welcome to today's lesson. Today we are wrapping up our paper 1. So it's mostly about the training on how you can approach your question paper tomorrow. Remember that tomorrow, the 12th of November, you will be sitting for your paper 1 economics final examination for second session. So our revision for today comprises of macroeconomics and economic pursuits. You know better about that because you've been trained regularly. So please join me. Let's see the practice and the training that will benefit you as you are going to sit for the paper tomorrow. So the following are simple lesson objectives for today's lesson. So this lesson aims at training candidates on how to approach the question paper, which is paper 1 for tomorrow. And then it provides some examples that as guidelines to approach different questions in all sections of the question paper. So it will mainly focus on giving you the relevant training from section A to section C and providing some examples that will show you clearly on how you should respond in some questions or some nature of questions as they come into the examination. So our economics paper 1 will be written tomorrow. So today's revision is on the 11th of November, preparing for the 12th of November 2024. So our paper, we have our macroeconomics and economic pursuits. Remember, we have already made your choice, I believe, on whether you want to deal with or invest yourself mostly in macro or economic pursuits. So always remember that our macroeconomics consists of 4 main topics, namely the circular flow, business cycles, the public sector, and international trade under foreign exchange markets. And then our economic pursuits is one have most of topics, namely we have protectionism and free trade, which is longer. And then we have the likes of economic growth and development. We have regional development, and we have the social and economic indicators. So you have a choice here on what you want to take on as you prepare for your paper tomorrow. So there's a breakdown also here on on questions and topic that are found in each question. Our paper is out of 150 marks as usual. It will be 2 hours. So just ensure that you become more efficient as you answer your questions in the question paper. So the macroeconomics as usual have the circular flow, the business cycles, public sector, and the foreign exchange markets. And then economic pursuits consist of protectionism and free trade, economic growth and development, industrial development policies or regional development, as well as economic and social indicators. So our focus area today is here. We are not doing anything related to paper 2. That's why you focus on the first column of our examination structure. So section A and B topic distribution. How are topics distributed across? So firstly, in question 1, be aware that even if you want to answer maybe macro, you will come across questions in section A that are for economic pursuits. So be aware of that. Section A or question 1 combines both the macroeconomics and economic pursuits. And then the question 2, if you want to answer maybe economic pursuits, be aware that these topics will not be a part of your question, because these topics as for question 2 are macroeconomics topics only. If you want to answer the macroeconomics, that is question 2. This is where you should focus on the most, doing circular flow, business cycles, public sector, and foreign exchange markets. For the question 3, that is only economic pursuits. There is no macroeconomics. So it is very important for you that as you prepare, you know your strongest area or strongest side. You know what you are ready to cover on or take on as in now. And then you just have to add going forward until tomorrow. 2 o'clock. So check. If you want to answer the question 3 of your question paper, then it is very important for you to be fully informed about the protectionism and free trade, economic growth and development, regional development, and economic and social indicators. Then, if you want to answer question 4, then it is very important for you to know that the question 4 is the combination of both macroeconomics and economic pursuits, meaning it combines both of these topics. So should you want to take on question 4, then be ready to answer in both the main topics, macroeconomics and economic pursuits. And then details of the question paper. Each question paper carries 150 marks. So you will be writing out of 150 marks. And then the duration of the question paper is 2 hours. Each paper comprises of 6 questions divided into 3 sections. Then we have section A, which is question 1. It's compulsory. We will talk about this one. It's one of the very important questions. We need to get more marks in there. Section B consists of 3 questions. So we have question 2, question 3 up to question 4. Then as a candidate, you will then have to choose only 2 questions out of 3. You don't answer all questions. Choose only 2 questions. Remember, should you answer all 3 questions in section B, the marker, you are not marked by your educator. Let's start there. You must be aware and be informed about that. You are not marked by your educator. You are marked by the strangers in the situation, other educators. So in this case, then you answer all questions. They are not going to do sifting for you. They will simply mark first 2 questions that you have answered, and then the third question won't be marked because it's an extra question that will be answered, which is not required. So it is very important that you read instructions with understanding and make relevant choices according to the instructions. And then section C consists of 2 questions. So you know better. We have question 5 and question 6. So in there, as a candidate, you just have to answer only 1 question. So it is very important for you also not to answer both the section C questions. We have question 5 and question 6. You choose one question where you are strongest and then you answer the question. One thing I have to warn you about, do not switch questions. Do not switch additional parts in the question given to you. If we are given the question 5, do not steal the additional part for question 6 and put it in. That thing is not going to be marked. Ensure that you follow the question instruction as it is. If we are given question 5, the main part and additional part, answer the question the way it's required. Do not steal other questions from somewhere to bring them closer because you believe that you understand that other additional part. No. Try to ensure that you do the right thing because you will be forfeiting marks unnecessarily. Answer the question that you have chosen from the beginning to the end. Do not just switch questions and mix questions because you think the marker will fill for you. There is no way they will be filling for you. They will be marking what you will be answering and ensure that you give numbering correctly. Do not switch things. Follow the question paper when you provide numbering so that they will be able to mark you accordingly. So we have section A, which is compulsory. So this is the layout. Question 1, we have multiple choice, which is the lower order, by the way, because we are given the question statement with 4 options. You must choose one mostly correct option. Other options might be related, but there is one option which is outstanding and correct. So remember, each answer worth 2 marks. Then we have 8 options that will give you 16 marks. And then matching items, column A and column B. Also in there, we are given 8 options in column A and none options in column B. You just match what is relating to each other. Then you get your answers correct. Each answer is 1 mark. That will give you 8 marks. These are easy marks to get for you. You can get this 24. Then you see what to do in 1.3. 1.3, you give the term. You are given the definition or description. You simply provide the term that is related to that particular description or definition given to you. It's also a lower order. So 3 items per main topic, 6 items, and then 1 mark per item. Abbreviations, remember, this is very important. Abbreviations, acronyms, examples are not allowed. Do not bring abbreviations and acronyms in this situation. It is not allowed. Simply provide the answer in full words. No abbreviations will be given attention. Even if your abbreviation is correct as for the given definition or description, but it will be marked wrong because abbreviations are not allowed, and it is even indicated in the question paper that abbreviation and acronyms will not be accepted. So your section A is out of 30 marks. Ensure that to grab those marks that are very much important for you to achieve your target. So how to achieve your target? Remember, getting 0 to 44 marks out of over 150 will give you level 1. And then 45 marks out of 150 is exactly 30%. So that's your level 2. So what you need to do if you want to achieve better than that, you add 15. So from 45, you say plus 15, you go straight to 60. That is your level 3, which is 40%. So, and then you go further. You can see we say 45 plus 15 is 60. That gives us 40% square. So you know where you are standing. You know your strength. You know your target. So this is guiding you to achieve your target in a better way. And then if you want to achieve further to 50%, you will then be adding 50 to that 60 mark that you achieved. So it's 60 plus 15. You get 75 over 150. That is 50%. That's level 4. So that will assist you. Ensure that whenever you move from one scale to another, you know that you must always add 15 marks to achieve next target. And then also 75 plus 15 takes you straight to 90. You are getting 90 over 150. That is your 60%, which is level 5. Then we go further to see if you want to achieve the better percentage. So from 90 that you achieved here out of 150 plus 15, it's 105 over 150. That is your 70%. So that is your level 6. So let's say you want to achieve level 7. So we simply do the following. We say that 105 that you achieved, you simply put more effort to add another 15. 105 plus 15 is 120. That is the beginning of your level 7, which is the distinction. So that's your 80% and level 7. So it is very easy for you to move from one level to another. As we are studying now, you know where you are as for your preparation. Just put more effort to move from one level to another until you achieve your target. Any mark above 120 marks out of 150 is a distinction level. And then percentage contribution per section. So our section A, we have short questions, which is multiple choice matching items and give one term. Then it's out of 30 marks. It's 20% in our 150 paper. So it contributes 20%. And then section B, we have you choose only 2 out of 3 questions. Question 2, 3, and 4. You choose only 2. Each of them is out of 40 marks. So it's 80 as you choose 2. That will be giving you 53.3%. And then section C, essay, where you are given 2 essays, then you must answer only 1 essay out of the 2 out of 40. Then it's 26.7%. So it is important also for you to know this. Remember, since you have been working from term 1 until term 3, you are working out of 25%. So that 850 marks from your term 1, term 2, term 3 assessment that were formal have been summed up to 850 marks, then have been converted to 25%. You know where you are with your 25%. So after that, we move to final exam, which is contributing 75%. Tomorrow, you are sitting trying to work out of 75%. Remember, your paper 1 and paper 2 combined together will be giving you 75%. So it is very important for you to know that you have worked for 25%. So as for paper 1 and paper 2 combined, you are working out of 75% all in all. That 300 marks, 150 together will be converted to 75%. Then we take your 25%. Also, it is very important for you to be mindful that your performance during the year, which was SBA, is one of the very important performances to influence your final mark. There is something that we call the mark variance or mark variation. Should you really you find that you did very well in your SBA marks out of 850, then now in the final exam you do poorly, you don't perform very well, that will compromise you as a class, that will compromise you as a school, because your marks might be subtracted due to the mark variance. So it is very important for you to ensure that you perform exceptionally in your final examination so that you beat your performance on your SBA. So we have a problem. So the question is, what is the problem with economics? Why are candidates not achieving the way we expect them to achieve? Why are they not doing what we expect them to do? As we put more effort, we do everything possible for them to achieve. You have one problem as candidates. You lack skill to approach the question paper, which will be provided to you. we are not having enough skills. You go to the question paper being fully informed about the content, forgetting that within the content there is also the critical aspect of the question paper where you need to take that content knowledge and link it to the existing world so that you can be able to obtain marks. So having content knowledge alone is not enough. You must be able to be critical in there so that you can answer questions that cannot even be found in your textbook. So choose question in section B and section C based on possible marks you can obtain. Do not just choose the question in there just because you see that you can get the first 4 marks, then you choose. It is important for you to screen your question paper as you receive it. Remember, section A is compulsory. There is nothing that you can do. We are not choosing in there. You answer the whole of section A. Section B, there are 3 questions in there that you must choose from. Question 2, question 3, and question 4. We have macroeconomics for 40 marks. We have economic pursuits for 40 marks. We have macro and pursuit 2020 in question 4. So as you choose, ensure that you choose according to the marks that you see you will obtain in the question, to avoid answering all questions, to avoid switching questions from one question to another. That is wrong. It will not be marked. So ensure that you do the right thing as you approach the question paper. Look at the question paper. Look at question 2. Check the first part, which is 2.1. Check 2.2, 2.3, and check 2.4. And check how good are you in those topics that are being assessed in there, in those subtopics. Then you can decide to choose the question based on the mark that you are sure you will achieve or you will obtain. Do not just choose for the sake of choosing. Avoid the peer pressure. If you are good in economic pursuit, go for economic pursuit. Do not follow your peers, because they are doing what is on their strength, on their powers. And then candidates ignore section A and forfeit marks. We know that you normally guess in section A. Do not guess in section A. 1.1, read question statement with understanding. Provoke your mind to give you an answer before you choose available options in there, because surely one answer is totally correct in there. So choose, do not guess in section A. Understand question statement and link them to the given options. If you guess, you will render yourself to the opportunity of getting 0. You can even get 0 in there. Candidates are unable to link concept in application questions. Remember, there are some questions that requires you that require you to link and apply. So should you not be able to understand or interpret the question correctly, you will provide the wrong answer. So understanding is a key on application questions. Answer without repeating the question. Whenever you answer, do not repeat the question statement in there, because you will think it's correct while it's wrong. Also, this thing of saying negative effect or positive effect, those things are not marked. We mark the content that we have provided in there. Candidate also lack the skill to take advantage of section C. Yes, we still have a challenge of candidates that are writing essay that have not even been assessed. You have your own essay in your mind, you bring it in the examination, but it is not being assessed. What are you answering? You bring from introduction to the conclusion. You bring your own additional part that is not even assessed. You render yourself on getting 0. Avoid answering questions that have not been assessed, especially in section C. Answer the question. The question might not be of your favorite if you get to the exam, but ensure that you answer the question based on the mark that you believe you will achieve. And if the question according to you is harder, pull yourself and push yourself to get there. There is no way you will know nothing about the question, because we know that our essays are fixed. They've been there. We have been doing revision on them. You have been taught these essays. They are fixed. They only change on additional parts. So what can make it difficult for you to just choose? Remember, we have macroeconomics with 6 essays. We have also economic pursuit. So you know where you are standing. You know what you want to do. There is no way the examiner will ask you the essay that has never been in the examination guideline. We deal with examination guidelines here. So you better be ready for tomorrow to avoid forfeiting marks, knowing exactly that you will be getting 0. Know where your strength is between macroeconomics and economic pursuits. Essays are fixed, so know them for listing subheadings, descriptions, and discussions. For instance, in this situation, let's say one essay comes in. You must be able to define that concept relevant to the essay. You must be able to give listing of subheadings. Then you must be able to give the description or definition of each subheading, so that you can be able to obtain at least 3 marks per subtopic or subheading. After that, you can then add the content knowledge. Then you go to your additional part. So we come across some of you writing essays that have not been assessed because you have only crammed that particular essay. Look, if you are good in macro, focus on macro for essays. If you are good in pursuit, focus on pursuit essays. Then there is no need to waste time by going all over. If you know that your strength is on macro, you know it says for macro, just be efficient in there. Your essay will come showcase, and then you give the essay and give your best. So these are some examples of section A for multiple choice. So as we start, read the statement with understanding and try to derive an answer before looking at the given options. That will help you. And then also classify the given options. Remember that two options are from the relevant content, while the two is wrong. You choose between the correct answer, between the two relevant. So one is related, one is mostly correct. You choose the correct answer, not the related answer. Then avoid leaving spaces with the hope of returning at the later stage. Do not leave spaces in 1.1. As you leave the space, you are forfeiting 2 marks, which is very important for you as you want to achieve your target. And then do not guess an answer without doing a depth analysis on the given options. Ensure that you relate. This thing is all about linking the statement to the given options. Then you choose the one that is very much linked to the statement. So these are some examples of section A 1.1. The curve that illustrates the relationship between unemployment and inflation is called the dash curve. So you already know in your mind that, okay, if we talk about unemployment and inflation, we refer to the Phillips curve. Then we check Lafayette curve. We have also Lorentz curve. We have demand curve as well as the Phillips curve. So let's check there. There is an answer coming for you. So the first answer is totally wrong. And then the second one is also wrong. The third one will also be wrong, we just say. And then answer will be D, which is our Phillips curve. Because remember, Phillips curve is the one that measures the relationship between, inflation and unemployment. And then another example for 1.1. Let's check. Purposely built industrial estate, physical include to seaports and airports. You know that now we are rushing to industrial development and regional development. You already know if we talk about purposely built industrial estates, those are industrial development zones. But let's check if the answer is available. So we have industrial development zones. Yes, the answer is there. But let's just run and see what we get there until we get to the slide for an answer. So we check our answer is written in red in there. So purposely built industrial estate, the answer will be industrial development zones, or IDZ. So you know the definition from the scratch. So you know it's linking automatically in there. Then you give your answer. As for choosing the correct letter, the letter is A in there. And then we go further to the next example. What is provided in the balance of payment sub account that captures transaction based on purchase of shares between countries is called. We know that now if we go to the balance of payments, which sub account of the BOP that captures transaction based on the sale of shares, we know there is a financial account in there that will be recording what we call the shares, but then it records investments. Within the financial account, we have the portfolio investment. But let's check which options are provided to us. Capital transfer account is wrong. Financial account is the one that is correct, because in the financial account we have what we call the portfolio investment. Then let's check the given options, which answer is correct. We already know the answer is correct, and it will appear in red. Capital transfer will be wrong. Then financial account is correct. Remember, under financial account we go in there and record shares or paper assets or financial securities or government bonds under what? Under the portfolio investment sub account. And then we will continue with the next example. And then example again in this situation. And then we have economic indicators that are in proportion to economic performance are known as dash indicators. If they are in proportion, remember, some are not in proportion, some are in proportion. Let's check which are those indicators that are in proportion. Leading, and then composite, no. And then also counter-cyclical, no. And then we have the last one, which is pro-cyclical. Then let's check. The answer will be D, because pro-cyclical indicators are the ones that are in proportion to the economic performance. For instance, the money supply. If the money supply increases, the economy will also increase. So that is pro-cyclic indicator. And then let's check in there if our D is indeed highlighted to red, the meaning it's correct. Leading will be wrong, and then composite will be wrong. Our counter-cyclic will be wrong. Remember, counter-cyclic indicators are not in proportion to the economic performance. For instance, if ever unemployment increases, what happens? Then economic growth will be decreasing. So they are not in proportion, because as one increases, one decreases. And then let's check pro-cyclical indicators. All right, then another example. So an import substitution that occurs when a country decides on its own will, we need to underline here, to replace former imported goods and services with, is dash import substitution. So when the country decides on its own, without being forced, the country decides to replace former imported goods on its own will, maybe to improve economic diversity, to prevent international dependency. What kind of the import substitution is that? So let's check what is provided into you. Voluntarily, yes, it's a voluntarily. When the country volunteer to replace former imported goods, that's a voluntary import substitution. It happened in South Africa when South Africa decided to produce the steel on its own. It formed the company known as ISCO because it wanted to avoid depending on foreign countries for the steel. And then we have forced, which is then happen when the country is sanctioned from trading with other world countries, so we'll be having the forced import substitution. But in this situation is the voluntary import substitution, when the country decides on its own will to replace former imported goods and services with the locally produced goods. So voluntarily is correct, and then the rest is wrong. We are not even considering it. And then let's check the next part, matching items, column A and column B. In here, look at the column A, a concept, and try to derive an answer before looking at the column B. But one can do it either way. Some are good at looking at column B, definition or descriptions, then they derive the answer. After that, they look for the answer. So in this situation, ensure that you get marks, you get all marks correct, because if you get one answer wrong, it is highly possible that you will be losing 2 marks. So use elimination method by matching answers that you are sure they are correct. Do not just guess while you still have answers that you can still get correct. Do not guess in there. Eliminate, start with what you know, get it right. After that, go back to see the remaining options and see how close they are. Then you can get the answer. And then also, then look at answers that are confusing you. Do not guess as yet. Relate and make sense. Find commonality between the remaining options. After eliminating, you surely have few options remaining. Relate again until you have a column B response remaining. One column B response remaining, which is expected to be wrong. Remember, in this situation in column B, one answer is expected to be wrong, and then 8 must be correct. Then should you really choose one answer which belongs somewhere and put it somewhere, you have already lost 2 marks. So ensure that you do things accordingly. And remember that it's highly possible that choosing one wrong answer in this part result to 2 wrong answers. So avoid such, because it will cost you. Do not leave any question or option in column A unmatched. Match both options in there to get your 8 marks. These are easy marks to get because answer is in your eyes. So please avoid guessing. Do the right thing. So here we are given in column A, monetary policy, and then marginal propensity to consume, terms of trade, export promotion, open market transaction, incentive, trade liberalization, consumer price index. Then in our column B, you check compares export prices with with import prices by means of indexes. We know that these are terms of trade. Refers to the personal income after tax has been reduced. Do we have anything there? We will check. Removal of trade barriers. Then we know that is when we liberalize trade. Buying and selling of government securities to influence the money supply. These are the open market transaction. Approach taken by the country's central bank to influence spending in the economy. Then that is monetary policy, because we talk about country's central bank. And then measures the headline inflation. That is your consumer price index. Strategies used to encourage the production. And then also we go further to check the trade policy that promoted the manufacturing of local products for the foreign market. And then proportion of their disposable income that household can spend. So let's check. We check 1.2.1. We have E, which is our E. We have monetary policy approach undertaken by central bank. That is correct. And then 1.2.2, we say it's I. Let's check I. Proportion of income. That was the marginal propensity to consume. That is correct. And then 1.2.3, we say it's A. So what is A? Terms of trade. It is correct. Terms of trade are there. And then 1.2.4, we have H. Let's check H. trade policy that promote the manufacturing. So that is 1.2.4, which is export promotion. And then also 1.2.5, we say it's D. Let's check our D, buying and selling of bonds, open market transaction, they are correct. 1.2.6, we say is G. Let's check our G, strategies used to encourage production, those are incentives. And then also, then we check 1.2.7, which is C. What is our C? Removal of trade barriers. And then that's a trade liberalization. That is correct. And then 1.2.8 is F. Measures headline inflation. That's CPI. That's how you deal with this thing. Firstly, you can look to column A first and try to define, or look for the description on column B. You derive the answer in your mind. Look for that answer. You will never go wrong. We go further. Remember, it's out of 8 marks. Another example of giving what we call, we are giving the concept now here. Know your terminology per topic. It is very important that you use mind the gap to understand terminologies and then understand its description before writing the answer. And then also use the DPE study guide, mind the gap for terminologies per topic. Remember, at the beginning of each topic, in the mind the gap, there are some definitions or description that can guide you to do better in your 1.3 and the entire section A. Do not leave any question unanswered and do not comply. Interact vigorously or intensively with each description. And then also we continue. These are some of the definition. Remember, in this part, we do not accept abbreviations, acronyms, and examples. We only take the concept as it is. The initial change in the spending produces the larger proportion national income, the point where the economic contraction is at the lowest, a transfer of functions and ownership from the public to private sector, an increase in prices of a currency in terms of another country's currency, and then the movement of import and export between countries without any restrictions, and then the social indicator that relate to the size of the countries, the population. So let's check. Firstly, we have multiplier effect. The first answer, the initial spending produces larger proportion national income. And then when the economy is at the lower, that is trough. And then the transfer of ownership from public sector to the private sector is privatization. And then the increase in the price or the value of the country's currency in relation to another country's currency, that's appreciation. And then the movement of import and export to, between countries without any restriction, that's a free trade. And then the social indicator relates to size of the country's population. We talk about demographics. So these are examples. Then we want to check another definition that are showing you that we don't take abbreviations. Should you give abbreviations, you will get it wrong. So the owners of factors of production in the economy. A summary of the value of different leading indicators into the single value. A statement of the country's trade and financial transaction with the rest of the world. The organization that promote peace and harmony between world countries. The main source of revenue for the state. The funding given to support relocation of machinery and equipment by the foreign direct investments. So let's check. The first one is households and or consumers, the composite indicators, the balance of payment. If you say BOP, it will be wrong. Be aware of that. BOP will be wrong. And also, if you say BOP and give it another option, the marker is not going to mark that. Ensure that to give one term that is required. United Nations, should you say UN, it will be wrong. Abbreviations and acronyms are not marked in this situation. The personal income tax or tax in there, and then foreign investment grant, saying FIG will result to you getting 0, not getting the mark in there for 1.3.6. So that's how you should conduct your section A. And then we continue. Approaching the question paper, continue. Do not write an essay that has not been asked in the examination. Please, I'm begging you. If you get to the examination, we know that you receive the question paper by quarter 2. When you have to check the sequence, you jump, which is wrong. Then by 10 we are given a chance to check the question paper. The first thing you do, you just go to the back and check your essays. We know that. That's what we also do sometimes to ensure that we see if we are safe or not safe. But ensure that you answer the question that is in the examination. Do not bring your own question because you are not the examiner. And then also be able to list subheadings for each essay. Ensure that you can list subheadings, because should you fail to list subheadings, you will be giving us paragraphs which will result you losing the lower order 8 marks for listing. Have a brief description of each subheading for each essay. If ever you are given you have a subheading that you have listed, be able to give description so that we can get some marks in there. And then also discuss the relevant content to each subheading. Do not take the content for the particular heading and throw it somewhere. Ensure that you are relevant, because now if you become irrelevant, it will be marked wrong. And then also, do not list points in additional part, but write in full sentences. Provide at least the minimum of 5 facts in full sentences in your additional part. Do not list, because should you list in there, you render yourself on getting 0 if listing is wrong. If it's correct, you will only get the maximum of 2 marks. If you are listing under additional part, you need to answer in full sentences. Note that listing of facts in an additional part can earn you a maximum of 2 marks if ever that listing is even correct. You can even get 0, by the way. And then we continue. How can you approach section B? Answer only 2 questions between question 2, 3, and 4. Do not answer everything. Use 10 minutes given time to make profitable choices. Choose questions that will give you more marks. Do not fall under trap by the peer pressure. Read each question with understanding before attempting to answer. And then also, read data response with understanding while highlighting important information. Contextualize it. Make sense of it so that you can get answers correct when you get there. Improve your ability to link, because the question paper requires most of linking in application question. So do not just go there for listing and discussing the content. You must also be able to argue, be critical in there, apply the content into the existing world. Be smart when answering application questions. Ensure that you don't repeat question statement, but give the correct answers. Do not just go left and right. Give what is required in there. Answer in full sentences on questions that require explanation or brief discussion. Do not list. You will forfeit marks in there. We'll continue with the approach. Let mark allocation determine the time you can spend on each sub question that you will be answering. Avoid leaving blank spaces in section A and section B or section C. And then avoid answering 3 questions in section B. Ensure that you choose in there as required to choose according to the examination instructions. Avoid answering both questions in section C, because you won't have enough time, and the marker will mark the first one. And then also be able to analyze, interpret graphs, cartoons, extract, and data in section B, data response. And then it is also important for you to be able to ensure that as you upload the question paper, you let marks at the side and allow you to choose the question. Do not just move because others are moving. By the way, in this examination, you really focus on your own script and question paper. Ensure that you answer based on the mark that you believe you will achieve in that particular question. So this is the middle order. I just want to give you the minor training on how you should apply. I have highlighted some concepts in there. How does increase in taxes affect the economy? So check. There is action verb, increase in what? In taxes. Affect what? The economy. We have 3 challenges here. You must know that if ever the tax is increasing, how does that affect the economy? So let's check. We are talking about variety of different types of taxes here. Increase in taxes is detrimental to the economy. It decreases the level of spending and result to low production and economic growth. We know that if ever taxes are increasing, households as taxpayers find themselves finding it very difficult to have more disposable income. They demand less goods and services because most of their income goes to taxes. And then increased taxes can increase the state revenues, which can be used to finance the national budget to improve economic activities. So if ever taxes are also increasing, that can result to the government earning more tax revenue that can be used for the government expenditure. Then that can also help in improving infrastructure, creating job opportunities, etc. High corporate tax or company tax increases cost of doing the business and discourage investors into the country's economy. If ever tax is too high for businesses find it difficult to operate because they increase the cost of doing the business. Then they will withdraw. So that will be bad for the economy. Then we continue. Let's check another question. What impact does high savings have on the size of the multiplier? So high savings have on the size of the multiplier. It is very important for you also to know this. We know that savings are leakages. So as savings increase faster, that can lead to the multiplier decreasing, by the way. Let's check. High level of savings withdraw money from the circulation. It decreases the level of spending and result to low size of the multiplier. Yes, there will be lower multiplier because savings are increasing faster than the consumption. Why are assets subtracted in the balance of payments? Now you know, if we talk about assets, you must go back to check what is it that we call assets in the BOP. Remember, on our capital transfer account, on our financial account, on our other investments, any inflow of what we call of investments, or of what we call of investments, or the inflow of maybe the capital transfer is regarded as a liability, but it will be added because it's an inflow. Why do we call that one a liability? Because any future gain of that particular capital or investment will be enjoyed back in the country of origin in the near future. And then also, what about, what is it, the investments? If ever the foreign investor invests in South Africa, we receive that amount of money and we add that amount as a liability because it's an inflow. But why do we call it a liability? Because any future gain or interest of the investment will be enjoyed back in the country of origin in future. So what about assets? Why are assets subtracted? We subtract assets because it's our investment. If we invest abroad as a country, the money is flowing out of the economy, so it must be removed from our economy because it's flowing out. Why are we calling that amount of money assets? It's an asset because the future benefit of that particular money will be enjoyed back in South Africa. If it's going there to be accumulative, we know assets are accumulative, it will then be enjoyed in South Africa in the near future. That's why assets are subtracted on our balance of payments. Assets are subtracted in the balance of payment account because they are the outflow of money from the domestic economy. Remember, we can't add outflows, we must subtract them because money is leaving the economy. And then how can the appreciated exchange rate affect terms of trade? Here you are applying again. Check. You must know the appreciation of the exchange rate. If the exchange rate appreciates, how does it affect terms of trade? We have two challenges here. You need to understand the challenge of appreciation. You need to understand the challenge of the terms of trade, and then link them both. How can appreciation affect terms of trade? Remember, if ever the currency appreciates, our export become relatively competitive or expensive abroad. So, provided if our exports are demand inelastic, they will be demanded even if they are expensive abroad. So that will be increasing our terms of trade in both short run and long run. But should our export be demand elastic, that will mean foreign consumers will find alternating product to replace our exports. So as they find alternating products that are relatively cheap for them abroad, what is going to happen? They will demand less of our goods from South Africa and demand more from other goods, which will be decreasing our terms of trade because there will be less demand for our exported goods in the global market. So let's check that two ways in which you can answer, provided of demand elastic or demand inelastic, that you covered in your grade 11. The appreciated exchange rate increase the terms of trade in the short run because it makes export expensive, which increase export earnings. So in the short run they can increase because then there will be more export earnings due to the fact that our export will be relatively expensive. Then in the long run, then our terms of trade can decrease provided if our exports are demand elastic, they can be replaced easily. Why is it necessary for the country to analyze the balance of payments? And then it helps the country to discover differences between inflows and outflow of the currency. It is helpful to measure the country's international competitiveness. And then let's check also, analyzing the balance of payments enables the country to use necessary measures such as borrowings if deficit prevails. For instance, if ever the country is faced by a high level of deficit, it can intervene through lending and borrowing. It can borrow from the IMF if it's a member country under International Monetary Fund, or apply for special drawing grant SDR from IMF so that it can be able to fund its exports. And then what impact does the increasing demand for a currency have on its value? If ever demand for the currency increases, how does it affect the currency? So you check the increase in the demand for the currency has on its value. Let's check if the currency is highly demanded, there's excess demand. The increase in the demand for the currency more than its supply is regarded as an excess demand. It leads to the currency depreciating or losing its value. How can interest rate be used to strengthen the undervalued currency? So that's a Reserve Bank intervening. You must understand interest rate. How can it be used to strengthen or making our currency to be stronger if our currency is undervalued? Remember, if the currency is undervalued, it is too weaker than expected. And then the Reserve Bank can decrease interest rate to decrease the demand for domestic currency. For indirect investors, those that are investing on portfolio investment, will be discouraged from investing if less returns are obtainable. If they know that as they invest on buying shares in South Africa, they will be getting less returns, then they are no longer going to demand our currency by investing to invest in South Africa. And then how can the increase in cost of the infrastructure hamper economic growth? We know that if the cost of infrastructure increases, that can be detrimental to the businesses. High infrastructure costs, such as transport, energy, and communication, increase the business cost. This decreases production, aggregate supply, GDP, and economic growth as a whole. Why is employment regarded as a pro-cyclic indicator? Why is employment regarded as a pro-cyclic? Remember, if we talk about pro-cyclic indicators that are in proportion to the economic performance, should employment increase, we are highly expecting economic growth. So employment is in proportion to economic performance. The increase in employment increase the economy, while the decrease in employment decrease the economy. So it is regarded as a pro-cyclic indicator for that reason. How can productions and policy promote economic efficiency? The production of domestic industries against unfair foreign competition decrease the goods and services, limits consumer choice, and promotes price that are not competitive. If ever there's a protectionism policy in the country, local firms will find themselves being favored by the government, and they will end up exploiting local consumers to high prices over poor quality of goods and services. And then, why are current special economic zones seen as an improvement of existing industrial development zones? We know that SEZ are seen as an improvement of existing what we call ITZ. So why? Special economic zones offer a wide range of incentives that attract both locally based businesses and exporting businesses. They can be located anywhere in the country, while industrial development zones are only attract exporting business and can only be located nearby seaports and airports. We know that ITZ are very much limited. They have limited scope. They only attract exporting businesses. They only attract the business that are willing to produce to the global market, not to produce for the local market. While SEZ can attract both the exporters and locally based businesses, can also provide variety of incentives rather than other than ITZ that can only provide us with the duty-free import areas or duty-free incentives. So the SEZ is really the improvement of existing ITZ because it is having wider range of scope. And then what is the important, why is it important for South Africa to comply with international benchmark when compiling economic indicators? South Africa can easily be compared to other world countries based on economic performance. Remember, if we use one benchmark, if we're using standardized methods, we can be compared with other world countries in terms of indicators. But if we use our own way, then we cannot easily be compared because standards are not the same. To ensure international standardization so that organizations like International Monetary Fund can intervene to help with finances to reduce balance of payment disequilibrium. What impact does the medium-term expenditure framework has on the public sector? So MTEF improves public sector planning or long-term planning, since income and expenditure is projected for the 3-year period. Then all government departments can plan for the long-term, then short-term. We know that under MTEF, the government departments will be providing their planning and requisitions for the period of the next 3 years, which is promoting the long-term planning for the government departments. That will ensure that there is mostly more efficient and more evaluation before decisions are made on putting that particular expenditure on the main budget. And then we move to the data response. With time, I will try to be quick on this one. Data response. So here you have our multiplier diagram. So there we have our 45-degree line. In there we say E equals to Y. Why E equals to Y? Because any intersection along the 45-degree line indicates equilibrium, because in the income equal to the expenditure. And then we have our autonomous spending line. There you go, it goes up there. Then we have investment or autonomous spending of 10 million. We say E equals to 10 plus 0.5Y. So that means on the given expenditure, then we have 10 million, which is expenditure, but we only spend half of it, which is 0.5. So be aware, if ever the examiner asks you to say identify the value of MPC, that is 0.5. not 0.51. And then we have the induced spending, which is our 30 million then. So we have E1 equal to 30 plus 0.5y. So the same 30 comes in there to say on the expenditure of 30 million, we will be spending half of it on the given income. That is our 0.5. And then let's check. The change in the income, we have 20, we have 60, and then we have 20, we have 60. Then let's check the questions in there of our multiplier. So let's check. Identify or the original consumption function in there. Original one was E0 equal to 10 plus 0,5y. That's our consumption function. Give the marginal quantity to consume MPC from the above graph. It is 0,5, not 0,5y. So it's 0,5 strictly, as given by the data response. Briefly describe the term induced consumption. Remember, induced consumption is the consumption that depends on income. You cannot spend without having income in this situation. You must be receiving a particular income so that you can spend under induced. But as for autonomous, we refer to the spending that is independent of income. You can spend without having income. I know you have been questioning to say why we can spend. How can you spend without income? You use your previous savings to spend. And then how does the increase in marginal rate of taxation MRT influence the value of the multiplier? The first thing you need to note here, you must know that the taxation is a leakage. Should we include tax in the multiplier, that means the amount of money invested or spent in the economy will be less, because if we spend 10 million, that means a certain amount will be taxed by the government, then not actually 10 million will be received by the person we are buying from or we're investing to. So it is very important to know that leakages have a bad effect on the multiplier. They decrease the size of the multiplier. All leakages, if ever they increase, it will decrease the value of the multiplier due to the decrease in the marginal quantity to consume. So remember, if ever taxation is involved, that means there will be less disposable income, so there will be less consumption spending. Then we continue. Using the formula change in income over change in injection, calculate the value of the multiplier for the above diagram. Show all calculations. We check change in income over change in injection. So what is the change here? Let's check. We say 60 minus 20. And then also up there we say 60 minus 30. So 60 minus 20 and then divided by 30 minus 10. So 40 over 20 give us what we call 20. Remember, ensure that you follow all steps as you calculate, because we no longer provide 2 marks for an answer. We give 1 mark, 1 mark, 1 mark for each step until you get your 4 marks. So ensure that you provide all steps. You don't skip any step. You don't summarize, because you will be getting 1 while the answer is correct. And then here we are given the Phillips curve. We know that in this situation we are on the business cycle economic paradigm. Then there we have a natural unemployment rate in there. We have point C, which indicate the decrease in unemployment from 40 to 30%, while inflation is increasing to 3%. Whenever unemployment decreases further from 30 to 20%, then inflation will increase to 6%. If unemployment decreases further to 10%, that will mean inflation will be 9%. So our PC is shifting from PC to PC1. What is causing that? PC is shifting from right to the left because there have been improvement on supply side measures or supply side policies, such as improvement on human resource development or education, that can lead to further employment opportunities because people will become more marketable and employable. So that's our Phillips curve in there. Then we can see that we also have point F in there that indicate the new natural unemployment, where there is a shift of PC from PC to PC1 without affecting the inflation rate. And then identify any one point in the graph that shows the natural rate of unemployment. And then let's check. There is the answer, D or F. The point D and point F. Point D is indicating natural unemployment because in the unemployment is at the highest, but what is it? Inflation is 0. And then point F is showing that as the PC shift back, it touches, PC touches what we call, it touches our horizontal axis down there, and then unemployment will be decreasing, but it does not affect the inflation. Name the business cycle turning point during which inflation is often the highest. Then we check. That's a peak. Our turning point, remember, we have 2 turning points. The upper one and the bottom one. Upper one is peak, bottom one is trough. Briefly describe the term the business cycle. Business cycle is the decrease or movement of the level of economic activity over a period of time. Then there are so many definitions in there as long as they indicate increase and decrease. Explain a reason for the curve to move from to PC1. What is causing PC to move from PC to PC1? Implementation of supply side policies, improve labor skills and productivity through better education and training. Be aware of that. The Phillips curve can shift from left to the right because of some improvement in the human resource development. It can shift from left to the right only if there have been the decline on human resource development. People are not employable. People are not trained enough. And then Why is the relationship between inflation and unemployment regarded as the inverse or negative? Use information in the graph to motivate your answer. So it is very important for you to ensure that you link to the graph as you answer the question. When the rate of unemployment decrease, the rate of inflation increase. When the rate of unemployment increase, the rate of inflation decrease. On the PC curve above, when the unemployment is low at 10%, the rate of the inflation is at the highest of 9%. When the rate of unemployment it increased to 20%, the inflation rate decreased to 6%. Therefore, there is an inverse or negative relationship between what we call unemployment and inflation rate as for the Phillips curve. So we have data response here under social indicators, economic pursuit. You can see I'm hungry, and then source economic times. So in this situation, we are dealing with malnutrition. You can see the hunger in there. So let's check. Which type of social indicator is depicted in the picture above? Nutrition, health, or and malnutrition. And then identify the child malnutrition illustrated in the picture above. Weight for age or underweight. Briefly describe the term infant mortality. Infant mortality refers to the measure of the number of infants who die before reaching 1 year. And then we continue. Why is obesity in children associated to other diseases? We know that obesity can attract different diseases. If we talk about obesity, we talk about being overweight. And then being overweight or obese is in an early childhood increase the risk of, for adult obesity, and is associated with health conditions like heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, etc. And then we continue. What impact can poor service have on the well-being of people? If ever there's a poor service delivery, we are going to the indicator of public services or services. If ever there are poor services being delivered, how can that affect the well-being of the society? Poor service delivery negative affect enhancement of citizens' standard of living as well as their economic and social development. Poor access to electricity for electrical appliances usage reduces chances of being technologically advanced. Poor access to clean running water increases the likelihood of human beings suffering from diseases such as cholera, malaria, and other related ones. And then 8 marks questions, that's where we discuss. Remember, 8 marks questions can either be 2.4, 2.5, 3.4, 3.5, 4.4, 4.5. Remember, the 0.4 questions are merely order. That's a content knowledge that can be found in your notes or textbook. But the 0.5 is the higher order response where you need to do your own evaluation. You become critical over the content and apply it to the existing world. So they are for 8 marks. 2.4, 3.4, 4.4 questions. Know your content, because these questions are just the content knowledge which are available in all of your learning aids. They can be found in textbooks and anywhere on your school notes. Be smart when answering these questions. Use point form but answer in full sentences. Do not write in paragraphs. Use point form, but those points must be in full sentences. And then give the minimum of 4 full sentences in order to get full marks. The minimum must be 4 full sentences. If they are correct, you can get 4 full marks. Mere listing of facts and examples has the maximum of 4 marks in your 2.4, 3.4, 4.4. You can get maximum of 4 even if your listing is up to 8. But if it's a listing, it will be claimed for 4 marks if it's correct. 2.5, 3.5, 4.5 questions. Be able to apply the content into the real world. In this situation, we apply, we evaluate, we link, and then we synthesize. Critical thinking is a key to answer these questions, since they are, they need most of evaluation. We evaluate here. And then mere listing of facts and examples will give you the maximum of 2 marks. Even if you list 20 points, as you list them, they will be claimed or kept together for 2 marks if they are correct, by the way. So avoid listing even in 2.5, 3.5, 4.5. Answer in full sentences. And then let's check. Under macroeconomics, briefly discuss moving averages. So in this situation, this content can be found in your learning aids. It is there. You don't have to be critical in there. You bring back the content as it is for 8 marks. Moving average is a tool used to analyze changes that occur in the data series over a period of time in the business cycle. And then also it is calculated to iron out minor fluctuations and reveal trends of the business cycle. And then also the data given can be used to calculate the moving averages for the business cycle for the past 3 years or even 2 years, etc. Even months can be used. Moving average is the analytical tool used to forecast the trend of economic performance. And then we go further. It is the statistical data or data series used by economists, business, and government authorities to predict the future economic performance. Then we continue. With moving averages, we are not done. Using moving averages that determined from the given data, economists get a clear picture on the general trends of the economy or the business cycle. To calculate moving averages, quantitative and qualitative methods are used. We use two methods. Quantitative method is based on mathematics, while qualitative method yields research, assumptions, and probabilities. And then quantitative method is also known as judgmental method because there can also be probabilities that we can use. So we use judgments in there to make a decision. We don't use the available information, we judge. And then we continue. Briefly discuss appreciation of rand using the change in demand. So in this case, you had to draw the appreciation graph and also explain. So we can see that the appreciation, remember I said to you, appreciation will happen when there's an excess supply. There must be our rand being oversupplied, not excess demand, excess supply. So you can see that the supply of rand remains high because as the demand decreases from D to D1, supply remains high. We are supplying 100 units, so that can lead to the appreciation. That's why you see the rand moving from 17 to 12 rand. We are now affording more of the US dollars. Appreciation is the increase in the value of the country's currency in relation to another country's currency due to the market forces. Appreciation is caused by the excess supply of South African rand. The decrease in the demand for South African rand from D to D1 decreased the amount of rand payable for US dollars. Appreciation occurs because of market forces. And then how can government use incentive to encourage industrial development? So now we are straight there to industrial development. The developing program that will ensure that proper skills are given to the labor force and cover a certain minimum of companies to trading cost. Providing business support programs and help improve delivery of small business support to small business and entrepreneurs. Availing grants to small and emerging businesses. Providing tax-free grants for investment in industries. Providing foreign investment incentives like strategic investment program to businesses. That can lead to the improvement of industrial development. So that was short. Then we go to the section C. So now there will be proper training on the section C, and then I will do all essays that are available in paper 1 so that you don't guess. If we are good in macro, go for macro. We are good in pursuit, go for pursuit. Know that. Do not just play around. Know your strength and focus on those essays. Better know them all in macro if you want to answer question 5, or better know them all in pursuit if you answer question number 6. Do not play around in there before you bring us the essay that has not been questioned. Introduction, remember that is your 2 marks. That's why you provide the definition. It's a lower order response, by the way. So a good starting point will be to define the main topic in there or concept. Do not include any part of question in your introduction. Do not say in this essay I will discuss this and that. No, we don't do that in this economics. Do not repeat any part of the introduction in the body. Avoid mentioning the introduction what you are going to discuss. Simply define the relevant concept for 2 marks. That's a lower order. So it is very important that you equip yourself to the introductions. Do not even give examples. The main part in there, which is body, discuss in depth or detail. Discuss, examine, critically discuss. The good thing about this is that we know our essays from the exam guideline. They are provided. Then we just have to know if ever the question comes like this, how should we answer? The maximum of marks is 26. Remember, in this situation, you have your 8:18 principle, where your 8 marks is the mere listing and providing examples in your main part. 18 marks is the delivery of the content. So be aware aware, as you provide your subheadings in your essay and give examples, you will be given the maximum of 8 marks. Then we are not going to mark you beyond 8 marks for listing. Then you must discuss your content. And then we also have our additional part whereby you critically analyze or evaluate for 8 marks. I mean, for 10 marks, that is your lower order. Remember, I mentioned before that you must provide at least the minimum of 5 points in full sentences so that you can obtain at least 10/10. You can even provide more if you are unsure that your answers are fully correct. And then we continue. The essay structure, conclusion. Remember, our conclusion should be the higher order. Remember, do not repeat anything that have been mentioned either on the introduction, main part, or additional part in your conclusion. Do not repeat. You need to summarize in the higher order response in this situation. Do not list or give examples. Just give the critical conclusion. They are normally easy and there is no formula for conclusion. You just have to be related to either main part or additional part, but we are not repeating any information. Critically so. That is maximum of 2 marks. Then you get your 40 marks. All right, how can you write your essay tomorrow? Essay must be arranged in subheadings. Do not write your essay in paragraphs so that you can easily get marks. But your what you call your subheadings must be explained. Use point form rather than paragraph when writing your essay. Do not write in paragraph. Write in point form, but in full sentences. Remember the IMAC structure, which stands for introduction, main part, additional part, and conclusion. So this will guide you to ensure that you answer all subsections of your essay. And then remember 8:18 principle in the main part, whereby for listing subheadings and provision of examples, you get the maximum of 8 marks. It will be allocated. And then the content knowledge and depth discussion of the concept has the maximum of 18 marks in your essay. And then we continue. Be aware that listing on the additional part may give you maximum of 2 marks. That was discussed before. Ensure that the responses you provide are enough to score maximum marks. Do not just give hints. Give enough points. I normally say, if you answer some question that require application, you give the fact and the effect of the fact. Avoid just providing one answer and keep quiet. It might not give you enough marks. Give the fact and what might be the effect of that fact. Then you can obtain enough marks in there. Arrange your essay in point form. It's been explained. Your conclusion should not have any repetition of either the introduction, main part, or additional part. It must be at the higher order. Essay in conclusion must be the higher order response. Then you don't conclude by saying in this essay, I have discussed this. That will not be accepted. Do not write an essay that has not been assessed. I think something is missing. Let me check. Yes. Do not write an essay that has not been asked in the examination. Please save your time. Answer questions that are in the examination question paper. Do not bring your own essay. Do not be creative. That is not going to give you any mark. Ensure that you answer questions. Look how easy it becomes. If you know the essay or you know the listing, let's say you choose macro, you know the listing for all essays, you know the descriptions or definition for those subheadings, each of them, your life will be easy. So why would you go for essays that have not been assessed? Come on, man, you can do better than that. Economic pursuit. If ever you go for economic pursuit, then know all of those essays, be able to list all of those subheadings. Should they be given to you, be able to give descriptions for each subheading given to you, and then that will be giving you an opportunity to obtain some marks. So avoid being creative. You are being assessed, you also assess yourself. That will be wrong. And then here we have some writing principles. Write in full sentences. Each relevant correct sentence will earn you 2 marks. Thus 9 descriptions will be given, and then also will be what we call 18 marks. So remember, it's 8 to 18. Then an extra 2 to 3 supporting facts in full sentences can be added to any subheadings to be safe for 26 marks. And then we continue. So here we go. Paper 1 that we are doing. This is the list of essays discussing detailed market within the 4-sector model in the economy. So I will start with you before we go any further. In this situation, you either define the market or define the circular flow in your introduction. Remember, circular flow refers to the economic model that illustrates, what is it? The flow of goods, services, and money between participants in the economy. Or the market is the destination where goods are traded. or goods and services are traded. Now, where do we start with this? Is say the factor market. We know that factor market is the market where factors of production are traded, and then this market is also known as a resource or input market. So the factor market can be subdivided into some markets such as the labor market, because remember, under factor market we also have labor provided in there, and then also we also have the land market in there, where they provide land as a part of factor of production. So all factor of production are paid for or remunerated, which result to what you call the money flow. Remember that the what you call factors of production that are sold in there are very important for the production to occur. So no production can occur without availability of factors of production. You name them all with their remunerations. So why is the factor market important in the economy? It is important because it makes the provision of very important resources such as the capital, land, entrepreneurship, as well as what we call labor, that are integrated by entrepreneurs and the government to produce goods and services. You move further to the product or goods market. The product market is the market where goods and services are traded, but it can be subdivided into different markets. Namely, we have the consumer goods market where consumer goods are traded, namely durable consumer goods. You define them and give examples. Semi-durable consumer goods, define, give examples. Non-durable consumer goods, define and give examples. And then you go further to the services market. That's a market where services are rendered. And then you tell us further to say, under what we call the goods market, we also come across the capital goods and intermediate goods in there. So goods markets are important because they bring goods closer to consumers. And then we go further to the financial market. That's a market where financial securities are traded within the economy. It is not directly involved in production, but it acts as a mediator between participants. In there, we can subdivide money market into two, namely the financial market into two, namely money market as well as the capital market. The money market is the market for short-term loans and deposits by the private sector within the economy. It is administered by what we call the South African Reserve Bank. And then you also mention which securities are traded in the money market. Capital market is the market for long-term loans and deposits by the private sector. It is controlled by Johannesburg Securities Exchange. And then examples in there, we can talk about maybe the mortgage bond and insurance companies for long-term investments. You go further to what you call the foreign exchange market. That's a market where different world currencies are traded or exchanged. So the three biggest foreign exchange market in the world are in Tokyo, London, and New York. And then that market is very important in economy because it allows for international trade, allows for outbound tourism or international tourism, and also allow people to import and export goods and services. And then that's a hint on this kind of an essay. Then we check your additional part. Discuss in detail the new economic paradigm, explain smoothing business cycle. In this situation, it is very easy also. You check, you define the business cycle or you define the economic paradigm. Remember, business cycle refers to the increase and decrease of economic activities, upswing and downswing of economic activities, etc. Or the new economic paradigm. That's a new economic perspective that mainly focusing on eliminating uncertainties on the use of the fiscal policy and the monetary policy. Economic paradigm is embedded on both the demand side and supply side policies. You start with the demand side policies. In there, we talk about the likes of what we call, remember, demand side policies are policies that are implemented by the government or central bank to influence aggregate demand. Those demand side policies include the likes of the monetary policy and the fiscal policy. You mention fiscal policy, you define fiscal policy as a policy by the government that mainly focus on influencing aggregate demand. And then in there, you give us instruments which are what we call the taxation as well as the government spending. You can even include the government debts, but they are the part of government spending. Taxation, in there you talk about both direct and indirect tax. So the government can decrease taxation if ever the economy is underperforming or if it's at economic slump. By decreasing or lowering taxation, that can lead to households or employees or workers having more disposable income to demand more goods and services, which will increase aggregate demand. And then also, if the government lower maybe the value-added tax, that can lead to goods becoming mostly affordable. So there will be an increase in what we call real income as consumers will be affording more goods and services. And then if the state intervenes by lowering company or corporate tax, that will encourage businesses to invest further in the economy by even employing more workers. And then what about government spending? The state can intervene by increasing government spending if the economy is underperforming at trough or at economic slump. By doing so, the government spending, remember, it can be on the state is increasing its spending on creating job opportunities for public workers, increasing wages and salaries for public servants, or also improving some community projects so that there can be more job opportunities. So in this situation, this can lead to more job creation in the economy, which will increase availability of money circulating and the demand for goods and services. So remember, the state can also intervene by increasing its spending on improving existing infrastructure. So what if the economy is doing very much good at peak? The state can implement what we call restrictionary fiscal policy by increasing taxes and lowering the government expenditure. What about the monetary policy? Remember, that's a policy by South Africa or by the central bank aiming at influencing money supply and the demand in the economy. Repo rate as interest rate. Remember, repo rate is the interest rate imposed by the central bank, commercial banks on their borrowings. So should the economy be at the economic slump, the central bank can intervene by doing what? By decreasing repurchase rates so that it can increase the money supply. Remember, with repo rate decreasing, household and business will find it mostly affordable to borrow money from commercial banks, which will lead to more credit availability and more money supply. That will lead to increased aggregate demand and more consumer spending in the economy. What about the cash reserves? Remember, we call this one a cash reserve requirement. Remember, cash reserve refers to the ratio that commercial banks are obliged to keep on their position to avoid more money supply in the economy. So the central bank can intervene by decreasing cash reserves if ever the economy is at economic slump or trough. By doing so, that will decrease the vault money and increase money supply. As money supply increases in the circulation, that will lead to greater demand for goods and services. And then what about open market transaction? The state can, Reserve Bank can intervene by doing what? By buying bonds from the open market. Remember, this transaction can only occur between commercial banks and what we call and central bank. Reserve Bank can buy bonds from commercial bank to increase money supply or money circulation of money in the economy. By doing so, there will be more money flowing. We call that one the quantitative easing. There will be more money flowing in the economy, which will lead to people demanding more goods and services. What about the moral persuasion or moral suasion? Remember, in the central bank can intervene if ever economy is at economic slump. Central bank can intervene by relaxing moral persuasion, instruction commercial bank to be very much lenient when giving credit. Remember, people are always tempted to spend where there is more credit creation. They spend money they don't even have. So relaxing moral persuasion can result to people borrowing more money from commercial banks and can lead to more demand for goods and services. What if the economy is doing extremely well at prosperity? Central bank can intervene by implementing restrictionary monetary policy with the aim of decreasing money supply. That will be done by doing so, increasing repo rate, increasing cash reserves, selling bonds to the open market, and also tightening moral persuasion. And then we also talk about unemployment and the inflation index. If you talk about the unemployment as a part of Phillips curve, we normally say the increase in the economic growth does what? It increases the demand for labor. As the demand for labor increases, there will be increase in employment and decrease in unemployment. And then you go to the inflation. The increase in economic growth also increases the demand for goods and services. If ever the aggregate demand increases further than aggregate supply, that can lead to the increase in prices. As prices increase significantly, that can lead to the inflation. So the relationship between inflation and unemployment is measured by what we call the Phillips curve. Then you can draw your Phillips curve. That's your demand side. You go to the supply side. You talk. I'm not going deeper in this one because time is not on my side. You check reducing the cost of doing the business. In there, you talk about the cost of the infrastructure. You talk about administrative cost, and then you talk about also ensuring that the government provides incentives and subsidies to local businesses. And then you go further to efficiency of inputs. In there, you talk about capital consumption, you talk about taxation, you talk about free advisory schemes as well as human resource development. You go further to efficiency of markets. That's when you talk about deregulation, you talk about the increase in competition, you talk about leveling playing field. Those are the aspects of the new economic paradigm. Then you go to additional part. Then let's check. Discuss in detail features underpinning forecasting. In this situation, you define your business cycle, you define your features underpinning forecasting or indicators. After that, you go straight in there in your body. Leading indicators, lagging indicators, coincidence, as well as the composite indicators. You know that essay is one of the easiest essays we have. You mention, you discuss. Remember, in this situation, you must read the question statement with understanding before you attempt to answer, because you might have an early excitement trying to answer the question while you have not yet read the complete question statement. So you list all indicators: leading, lagging, coincidence, composite, extrapolation, moving average, the trend line, the length, as well as the last one, the amplitude. Be able to explain them all. That will give you easy marks. So I don't see any challenge in there if you come across such a question. Discussing detailed main objective of the public sector. So in this situation, that's when we discuss the likes of economic growth, we discuss economic equity, we discuss exchange rate stability, we discuss also the the full employment, etc. So that essay requires you to know all of those main concepts, then you can be able to discuss. And then we go further to reasons for public sector, linking them to the public sector provisioning. Be able to link this. Remember, in that situation, that's when we say the manage South African public services before liability, management failure, and then structural weaknesses, apathy, and then politicians, special interest groups, bureaucracy, as well as lack of motivation. Note this again to remember this essay for your exam tomorrow. You remember the subheadings. We say manage South African public services before liability. M for management failure, S for special interest group, and then A for apathy, P for politicians, S for structural weaknesses, B for bureaucracy, and L for lack of motivation. You know that essay. You have been writing this essay along the year, and you have even been answering this essay when it was not even assessed. So we believe you will get it right if it comes into the examination. And then discuss in detail reasons for international trade, both demand and supply. This essay, this can be one essay, can also be two essays. If the examiner is good to you, the examiner tomorrow can simply say, discuss in detail reasons for international trade. That means you talk about both demand reasons and supply reasons. Remember this essay, what should you do? You must always follow the mind the gap. We say for the demand reasons, we simply say, people in Witbank prefer coffee. People in Witbank prefer coffee. While if we talk about the supply reasons, we say rich countries like to send chocolate. The population size, income level, wealth of the population, preference and taste and consumption patterns. And then for the supply side, natural resources, the climate condition, labor resources, technical development, specialization, as well as capital. I think we have an example of this essay here. And then we continue. Economic pursuit essays, question 6. If remember, we have two teams here as we are observing this lesson. We have a team macro and team pursuits. So you know your strength. I'm not going to tell you anything. Discussing detail export promotion. In this situation, that's when now you discuss in detail the methods or approaches to export promotion, reasons or advantages as well as disadvantages of the export promotion. Remember, if it doesn't come in as the section C, it will come as a part of section B. Discussing detailed arguments in favor of protectionism. In this situation, that's when now you go straight to discuss the likes of dumping. We know it was once assessed, but you were given some subheadings, and it was frustrating for you because you couldn't answer some of those subheadings. You knew the likes of dumping and others, but they were not given for you. So please ensure that if you come across this essay, we are able to list 9 subheadings in there, and then after that you can explain each of them. This topic requires most of understanding, then you can be able to answer. And then we go further, discussing detailed demand side approach to promoting growth and development in South Africa. In this situation, that's when now you go straight to you repeat the monetary policy and fiscal policy. So your definition will be either economic development or economic growth in there. Then you go in to discuss demand side. In your demand side, that's when you discuss the fiscal policy, like I've discussed it before. You discuss your monetary policy that on how it can be used to ensure economic growth and development, meaning you deal with the expansionary fiscal policy and expansionary monetary policy in this kind of the essay. After that, you go further under fiscal policy to where you talk about progressive tax system, you talk about the what you call the wealth taxes, you talk about the subsidies, the property subsidies, you talk about other redistribution such as land restitution, land redistribution. There are so many that you can provide. Triple BE, we talk about C plus I plus G plus X minus M, that the part of this, say it's one of the longest essays, and we have done it on our previous revision session for paper 1. And then discussing detail South African growth and development policies and strategic initiatives. So in this situation, remember, we are talking about 11 policies. So we have RDP, EGIA, ASGISA, GIPSA, NDP, NGP, and then we talk about also EPWP, SBST, and then SBSP, and then Triple BE, etc. Those are economic growth and development policies that you must be able to discuss. If you are discussing RDP, Reconstruction Development Program, you must be able to explain that it's a developmental policy that was initiated in 1994 to ensure that South African people are having access to basic needs. You mention those basic needs, and then you continue with its objectives. And then you go further. Also be able to give evaluation in these policies if they've been successful or not successful in South Africa. Then we check the likes of GIA, growth, employment, and redistribution. It was formed in 1996 to complement the RDP. So the aim was to ensure that the South African government is able to reach its public sector or macroeconomic objectives such as economic growth, full employment, price stability, exchange stability, etc. It was there to ensure that there's a reduced budget deficit, and also inflation is kept between the target range of 3, does not increase excessively. So those are some of the things we can discuss. Those are objectives, and then be able to do the evaluation. The likes of maybe NDP, which is Vision 2030, NGP, which aimed at creating about 6 million jobs by 2010, which did not create those jobs because it failed to achieve those 6 million jobs by 2010 due to COVID-19. It lapsed. And then also we talk about ASGISA, which failed in 2014. It wanted to halve unemployment to 14% and create also millions of jobs. It could not do such because by then inflation, unemployment was 28%, but it could not have it to 14%. So discuss those policies, be able to evaluate them also, even for the sake of Section P. Discussing detailed South African initiatives or endeavors to regional development. In this situation, you define regional development or industrial development. In the board of your essay, that's when you discuss your industrial development zones, special economic zones, you discuss also SDIs, then you discuss the corridors. It's an easy essay to do if it comes in. You can even cram this one. I'm sorry to say that, but it's an easy essay to know. ITs that are purposely built industrial estate that are located nearby seaports and airports, and then you give us that ITZ objectives. It aims to attract foreign direct investors, also to promote competitiveness of local industries abroad, also to create job opportunities. So answer in full sentences. Incentives given by what we call the ITZs are duty-free incentive. Businesses that are investing nearby ITZs are getting to import their machines and capital goods free of charge without any tariffs imposed on them. And then they have a limited scope. They don't have a wider range of scope. As is that those are geographical areas that have been set aside to perform specific economic activities. In that case, you go further. I think we have an example of this essay. Let me just not continue. Discussing detail economic indicators. That's when you deal with the likes of, we talk about money supply, interest rates, inflation, productivity, and then unemployment. Those are our economic indicators. And then as for social indicators also, they come in where you talk about the likes of demographics, health and nutrition, urbanization and housing, public services, education, etc. So let's check. Here we come across macroeconomic example of an essay. We have been waiting for this. Discussing detailed reasons for international trade, 26 marks. And then why does South Africa fail to grow easily under international trade? So we have two essays that are provided here for both macro and pursuit. So let's check. Introduction. So I'm providing you the example. International trade refers to the economic interaction between countries, which include the exchange of goods and services. That's your 2 marks. You can define it in any way as long as it gives the same content. And then demand reason, population size. We say if there is an increase in population growth, it causes the increase in demand for goods and services in the economy. And then in order to satisfy all human needs, and local markets should increase productive capacity. And then also local suppliers may not be able to satisfy these needs due to less output and supply constraints. Then this call for local consumers to demand imports in order to satisfy their needs and wants. That is the population size. And then income level. And then the change in income for the population increases the demand. We know that if we have more income, we demand more. Changes in income cause change in demand for goods and services. We know that as income increases, that can lead to a high level of income per capita and more demand for goods and services. An increase in the income per capita result to more disposable income, and that can be spent on local goods and services, some of which may then be imported if ever they are not available locally. Consumption patterns and of developed countries will differ from those of developing countries based on the level of income. The level of income continues. In developing countries, there is high demand for basic goods and services, but lower demand for luxury goods. And then in developed nations, the demand for luxury is very, very high, and they will spend money on expensive imports if ever those goods are not produced locally. Level of wealth. And then an increase in wealth of the population lead to greater demand for goods and services. People have access to loans and credit facility, which result to them having to demand more luxury goods, many of which are produced in other countries, not locally. Wealth increases affordability and creates the desire to import. If people are wealthy, they have those assets that can result to them having more money and demand more imported goods and services, because it even affects the lifestyle of the population. Preference and tasting. Modern consumers have variety, wants, and preferences. What is causing that? That is caused by the variety of platforms such as social media that allow people to observe what is happening even in other countries. Not all goods wanted are produced in their own country. Therefore, it has to be imported. And then countries trade with other countries because they have the demand for the goods that they themselves cannot produce. And then we continue. Preference. Different cultures, regions, and lifestyle of immigrants will result in certain goods and services being imported to satisfy their differing needs and wants. As people travel from one country to another, they normally take time to adapt to the foreign food preparation. Therefore, they will have to import. As a result, the market for their domestic food preparation will be established. And then consumption patterns. The difference in consumption patterns is determined by the level of economic development of the country. Poorly developed countries will have high demand for basic goods and services, but low demand for luxury goods, while highly developed countries will demand luxury goods, for which some of them are produced abroad. The supply reasons. Natural resources. We know that natural resources are unevenly or unequally distributed across the earth. Some countries that have more natural resources than others because of their location or geographical areas. The Middle East has rich oil reserves and is the major source of the world oil supply. However, the Middle East lacks other resources, so it will have to extract more or produce more of oil and supply the rest of the world. So natural resources continue. By exporting oil, they can earn a large amount of foreign exchange, which they can use to pay for imports they need, e.g. minerals from South Africa. It is not easy to, it is not only the quantities that are spread unevenly, but also quality of the factors of production are not made to be equal across the world. We continue. Climate condition. So climate condition make it possible for some countries to produce certain goods at the lower cost than other countries, which will lead to specialization as well as absolute advantage. Climate variations or climate differ from a country to country. We have the issue of drought, floods, which will affect the production under agriculture and farming. Good climate conditions are essential for agricultural production, and then differing climate conditions allow some countries to grow certain crops and mean that other countries have no choice but to import the produce that their climate is unable to produce, so they must be supplied by other countries. The climate condition continues. Certain crops only grow under certain conditions, so can only be grown in countries where climate condition is highly suitable. So countries with the surplus of production of certain crops produce surplus to supply the internal market. So they have surplus production to supply even the entire world. We continue. Technical resources. Technological resources are available in some countries that enable them to produce certain goods and services at the lower cost per unit. Some countries are technically more advanced than others and are able to produce new and improved products at the lower cost and sell them at the lower cost per unit. That can lead to mass production and specialization. Countries that are technically more advanced than others and will have an advantage over countries that are still uses outdated technology. We continue with the technology. Production processes, the availability of equipment and machinery, and other technical factors all influence the supply of goods and services and therefore contribute to the cost differences between countries. Those that are having more or are mostly advanced in technology will produce more at the lower cost, but those that are not advanced, they are poorly developed in terms of technology, will be producing less goods at the higher cost and sell at the higher cost, which will lead to these economies of scale. For example, Japan is well advanced in technology, which makes it more advanced in over other countries in terms of technical production. Labor resources. Labor resources differ in quality, quantity, and cost between countries. So some countries have highly skilled and well-paid workers with high productivity levels. And then we continue. Some countries have more skilled workers, such as engineers, who can manufacture sophisticated equipment and machinery more and cheaper than other countries. And then we continue with labor resources. Productivity levels are higher and their production cost is lower. So the more skilled, educated, and productive the workers are, the more competitive the country will be internationally. And then specialization. Specialization in the production of certain products and services allows some countries to produce them at the lower cost than other countries. So countries choose to produce goods which are profitable enough for them to optimally allocate their resources in order to specialize. Specialization results to mass production, which brings the surplus to be supplied to countries with less resources to produce the product. And then we continue. The capital. Capital allows developed countries to enjoy advantage over underdeveloped countries. Due to lack of capital, some countries cannot produce all goods they require themselves. So some countries need to modernize their industries and economies with advanced machinery, equipment, and factories, but cannot obtain this equipment because they lack the capital to do so. So they will be supplied by other world countries. This has increased the need for international trade. That is 26 marks. Then we check additional part. So South Africa failed to grow internationally because the country is the main exporter of raw material which have low monetary value compared to finished goods. South Africa's manufacturing sector has supply constraints which deprive it capacity to produce. And then high cost of production creates unfair competition for local industries in foreign markets. Then less government intervention with production and export subsidies make it hard for the local businesses to compete with heavily subsidized foreign businesses or multinational industries abroad. And then we continue. South Africa fails because as infant South African industries find it hard to compete with multinational industries which have advantage of economies of scale, while our infant industries are faced by these economies of scale. Tariffs are too heavy for small industries which are not subsidized by their governments. International exposure requires huge capital which is not available for local industries. Other countries have competitive advantage in production, so South Africa fails to compete on the international market with the said countries. In other correct relevant response is accepted for 10 marks. And then your conclusion, for example, international trade remains as the main mechanism to reduce scarcity of resources, goods and services across the world. Scarcity of goods and services across the world. It, however, lacks the element of fairness since developing countries find it difficult to compete in the global market. That was your essay for macro. Then I did the one for markets. Here it is. Your essay can be, if it comes in, discussing detailed markets within the four-sector model of the economy or circular flow, or discuss in detail the importance of market in the circular flow. There you see them all listed in the factor market, product market, and then the foreign exchange market and financial market. Then you will see if there is any additional part. Then you attempt to answer. Obviously, if the essay comes in, there will be additional part. Remember, additional part will be come from the same topic or the same content. It doesn't come from another topic. You can't be given circular flow, then you are given additional part of business cycle. Then an example of economic pursuit. Economic indicators. Discussing detailed economic indicators related to inflation, foreign trade, unemployment, and productivity. Then additional part. Why is it necessary for the government government, economies, and businesses to measure the performance of economic indicators. Let's see the example. Economic indicators are statistical data that indicate the performance of the economy, or economic indicators are used by economists as barometers to determine whether economic growth and development have increased or decreased, for 2 marks. And then inflation indicators, remember, if ever you are given this subheading, it is not going to be marked. That inflation is a sustained increase in general price level over a period of time. Increased inflation as an effect or decrease in purchasing power rate of money. The South African Reserve Bank monitors inflation rate through monetary policy. The aim is to keep inflation rate within 3 to 6% target range. Inflation rate is measured through the consumer price index and the producer price index. And then we continue consumer price index. So CPI is weighted average of the prices of general basket for consumer of goods and services likely to be bought by consumers. It is calculated monthly and measures headline inflation. In the basket of CPI, what is there? We have the likes of the consumer goods, because it measures the cost of living. We have the interest rates, we have value-added tax that is there, but capital goods are not the part of its CPI basket. The PPI, producer price index, the PPI measures the cost of production by businesses. PPI serves as an indicator to predict consumer inflation, because the increase in cost of production results to the increase in consumer prices. And then remember, on the basket of PPI, we have the likes of capital goods and the price of imported machinery or capital goods. They are shown explicitly. Foreign trade indicators. Foreign trade can be described as the exchange of goods and services between 2 or more countries. Foreign trade indicators measure the country's competitiveness in the foreign markets. Foreign trade indicators include exchange rate and terms of trade. So exchange rate defined as the value of one country's currency in relation to another country's currency. Exchange rate means the price means a price at which the different currencies can be exchanged to the domestic currency. Changes in the exchange rate affect the prices that are paid for imports and prices that are earned on exports. Terms of trade. Terms of trade is the index of export prices to the index of import prices. Changes in export and import prices has an influence to the terms of trade. The increase in export prices has a temporary increasing effect to terms of trade, because demand for exports is likely to decrease in the long run. Changes in the terms of trade may spill over in the balance of payment. If terms of trade decrease, it may cause the BOP deficit. Then employment indicators. Employment indicators include economically active population, employment rate, and unemployment rate. Economically active population. EAP refers to individuals aged between 15 to 64 or 16 to 65 who are willing and able to work. EAP include individuals who are employed in formal and informal sector, self-employed personnel, and unemployed who are actively seeking for employment opportunities. The employment rate. Employment rate refers to the number of employed persons expressed as a percentage of economically active population. Employment rate data is used to determine labor productivity. Employment rate is in the different sectors, structural changes. Income per worker. Other important employment indicators are employment by occupation, by gender, by population group, and by the province. Then labor productivity indicators in there. Labor productivity is the ratio between inputs and output. That's a definition. Indicators related to the productivity include labor productivity and remuneration per worker. Productivity equals to output divided by factor input. Labor productivity will increase if input decline and productivity stays the same. Input stay constant but productivity increase. Inputs increase but production increases. Then we continue. Productivity indexes are published by the National Productivity Institute (NPI). Labor productivity will increase if the output per worker increases in a given period of time. Labor productivity can be expressed in volume term or monetary terms, such as the output per worker and real GDP per worker. Remuneration per worker. So the ratio between the increase in wages and increase in productivity is an important indicator. An increase in unit labor cost will result in a reduction in profitability. If the increase in real wages is greater than the increase in productivity, there will be inflation effect. Increased productivity is required for a country to compete globally or internationally. It is necessary because indicators are used by the government. So a digital part now. Indicators are used by government and economists to discover trends of performance of economics and social variables. Economic indicators are used by economists as barometers to determine whether economic growth and development has increased or decreased. Changes in the economic indicator has a huge impact on government decision making when planning the budget. And then economic indicators also have an influence on how the state implements its economic policies. Knowing the importance of economic indicators might increase the investors' confidence and result to an increase in the capital stock of the country. If economic indicators are published to internal organization platforms of a country can easily be assisted to improve performance of certain economic variables. Conclusion, changes in economic variables inform government decision making based on annual budget system, which is allocated based on economic behavior. So economic indicators easily lay out. So we say productivity, people, inflation, invest in interest rate, more money supply, food, foreign trade, everyday employment. So productivity, inflation, interest rate, money supply, foreign trade, and employment. People invest in more food every day. So people invest in more food every day. Productivity is P, inflation is I, interest rate is I, M is money supply, food is foreign trade, every day is employment. That's how simple it can be. And then we continue. So in summary, labor productivity, if labor productivity must be more than remuneration per worker, there will be no inflation. Remuneration per worker, if remuneration per worker must be more than labor productivity, inflation will increase. Inflation, consumer price index, and producer price index, those are indicators. Interest rate, repo rate, prime rate, nominal interest rate, and the real interest rate. And then money supply, M1, M2, M3, foreign trade, terms of trade and exchange rate. And then appreciation and depreciation of the currency for the BOP. My employment, economically active population, as well as employment rate. And then social indicators layout, we have human usually do not have enough savings. Human usually do not have enough savings. H for housing, usually U for urbanization, D for demographics, N for not for nutrition, H for health, enough for education, savings for services. Human usually do not have enough savings. Those are your social indicators in case you come across the question saying discuss in detail social indicators. You have housing, urbanization, demographics, nutrition and health, education, and services. Here is another example of an essay. We're running out of time, so I will be very quick on this one. Discussing detailed South African endeavors to industrial development or regional development. How successful is the government on promoting industrial development in South Africa? Then we go. So how do we start? Introduction. Regional development refers to the policies which are aimed at increasing the economic livelihood of specific areas or regions. 2 marks. Any other definition that is correct is given a mark. Then we go further. So in the Special Development Initiative, SDI, so we explain them. SDI is a policy to promote sustainable industrial development in areas where poverty and unemployment are at the highest level. So it can be defined as a link between important economic hubs and regions in the country. The intention was to grow SDIs mostly through private sector investment. So the state was to enhance inward investment through the granting of incentive to businesses. The public sector, the public-private partnership promotes the economic potential in underdeveloped areas. We continue. SDIs. In a public-private partnership, business may provide the capital to build the factory and buy the raw material and the employ labor, while the government will provide the capital for the infrastructure, e.g. roads and water. There are 2 types of public-private partnership which are compensated differently: unitary payments and user fees. So the SDIs involve the interdepartmental investment strategy that Department of Trade, Industry and Competition and Department of Transport can lead. Then we continue. SDIs are so long. Government industrial policies strive towards balancing between openness and in promoting local competitiveness by opening up domestic economy to international competition. And then DTIC, by the way, is driving force behind industrial and spatial development. relies on networking with other central provincial government departments, ITC, parastatals like Telkom, Eskom, and Transnet, and a research institution to plan and monitor the development. Key policy remains suitable industrial development in areas where poverty and unemployment are at their highest level. And then we continue. SDI focus on a high level of support to areas where socio-economic conditions require centralized government assistance and inherent economic potential exist. SDI goal to fast track investment and maximize synergies between various types of investments. And then we continue objectives. So develop physical infrastructure such as roads and harbors, stimulate economic activities in underdeveloped areas, create employment and stimulate economic growth in underdeveloped areas, and then develop inherent economic potential in underdeveloped areas, and then attract private sector and foreign direct investment FDIs, establish public-private partnerships. And then we continue. ITZ Industrial Development Zone. So these are purposely built industrial assets that are physical and close to seaports and airports, and then they are in duty-free import areas where we don't pay for any import duties. This strategy was aimed at making export intentionally competitive. Then they focus on creating jobs and promoting exports. Then we continue. Goods produced in these zones should be exported to foreign countries. As services are provided from outside, the economy is in the areas should be stimulated. And ITZ offers the world-class infrastructure, enjoys zero rate of VAT on supplies from South Africa sources and reduced taxation in some products. And then we continue with ITZ. ITZ were located to benefit investing companies through support, and then access to transport and exporting purposes, and then products produced for export and waiving import duties, and then skill training and for employees by providing subsidies. And then industrial development zones will continue. Each ITZ is designed to provide location for establishment of strategic investment, promote and develop links between domestic and zone-based industries, and then enable exploitation of resources-intensive industries. Then we continue. And then special economic zones. Remember to list ITZ that are currently in place in South Africa and SDIs. Special economic zone, it creates basis for broader range of industrial parks and provide economic infrastructure to promote employment. And then geographical demarcated areas where specific economic activities have been identified to develop. And then also these areas may enjoy incentives such as tax relief support system to promote industrial development. And then we continue. Special economic zone. So there are plans to reduce tax to 15% as an incentive to attract new industries into the SEZ. It aims are as follows: only new businesses, to attract new businesses into the SEZ. Business which are developing a new product line are also attracted. Business which are expanding their volume are also attracted. The Department of Trade, Industry and Competition has indicated that the existing ITZ where special tax incentive do not apply would be graduated to special economic zones. Remember, SEZ are having the wider range of scope compared to ITZ because they offer variety of incentives. And they can also be located anywhere in the country, unlike ITZ that can only be located nearby seaports and airports. But that can be located anywhere in the country. Corridors in South Africa are special areas that offer specific advantage to mining, manufacturing, and other businesses. So advantage also include presence of existing infrastructure and specialization of products or services. And then these corridors are development areas within South Africa and are development areas of all development agencies. Remember, DTI provides help to support development of corridors, e.g. Maputo Development Corridor that start in Gauteng and extends through Mpumalanga to Maputo Port, offers opportunity to transport industry easy. So corridors are the tract of land that form the passageway that allow the movement of goods from one point to another. We have two types of corridors: corridors within the borders of the country and corridors that move to beyond borders of the country. Additional part, the government has promoted industrial development by implementing GEAR, which focuses on promoting growth in economy, although it has not been successful on GDP growth. GDP growth is not at expected levels. The new growth path with the focus on improving certain skills would attract global business and ensure long-term economic growth. Has not seen the decrease in the number of people which are unemployed. The National Industrial Development Policy Framework, NIPF, as an appropriate policy within best practice, although hindered by unemployment problem. Then we continue on the additional part. And then spending huge amount on improving infrastructure through SDIs, for example, maintaining, improving, and expanding infrastructure, access suitable and modern, reliable, effective, and efficient infrastructure and services. The certain creation of jobs was not enough to reduce unemployment. Implementing of ITZ, although some ITZ growth have been slow due to incentive not being attractive enough to establish businesses. Introducing SEZ to address the negative element of ITZ by providing additional incentive to all businesses, even locally based businesses, small businesses, etc. And then we continue. Promoting small business development that has been reasonably successful due to the improved access to finance and capital, which has promoted entrepreneurship as well as efficient and competitive market. Promoting regional development, although it is still uneven because it is still centralized in 4 major metropoles in South Africa. Any other correct level response was accepted. Maximum is 10 marks. Remember, listing here will give you maximum of 2 marks. And then a conclusion as a higher order. It is the ultimate responsibility for the government to ensure that proper and effective policies and policy direction is given to the entire development of the country. Or every area in the country should be considered as a development and growth. The industrial sector is earmarked as safety net for as a safety net for millions of jobless people in rural areas. And then 2 marks because it's higher order. Any other correct and relevant conclusion is accepted. And then this lesson ends here. It was long, but I believe it benefited you. So you can also use the link to keep on going back to get some concept that you missed during my presentation. I, Mr. Mhlongo, and the entire team I'm working with, wish you all the best for tomorrow. Please ensure that you go there being ready. A paper might be challenging, but go there to challenge the question paper. We wish you all the best and we love you. Thank you.